Welcome to We for Warriors Project podcast.
Okay, so let me recap here. You take cannabis through a friend for the first time. Your experience with that is dramatically better than anything you're taking through the military. Not only is its effect on your liver with the ibuprofen bad for you, not only are the patches causing rashes, but the opiates, you get an opiate withdrawals for your back injury. So you take cannabis for the first time, at least for a medical purpose since you were a kid, and you have great experience with it. And then you find that cannabis connect, and then after a couple months, 6 months, how long was it till he said, fine, I'll give you cannabis, till he left?
So again, that was about November of 13. He knew he was taking off. And the Marine Corps had, again, told me that I was no longer fit for duty. So what I ended up doing when I went and took that information to my office, to my higher up, what they told me was I didn't have to come to work anymore.
Okay.
So now January of 14, I don't have to go to work. All I have to do is call in by 8. So now I've got all this free time on my hands, and I have no idea how to occupy it. But what I was finding is that any time that I was spending gardening, because we were attempting to have a garden in our backyard.
Now that's a garden. Wait. That's garden like real vegetables or cannabis?
Yes, like growing corn and watermelon and everything. Yeah, we're going straight Oklahoma farmer, and I'm finding some peace in this. I'm enjoying it. I've never grown anything before, but unfortunately, my dog, he didn't like the garden as much as I did. So every chance he got, he'd rip out the plants. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna move this indoors.
Okay.
Right? So then, of course, I'm gonna move my garden indoors. Well, you know what, might as well try and grow something else that may be beneficial.
Now, are you on base housing at the time?
No, God, no. I had bought a house in Geronimo, Oklahoma. So I was living actually in the first town south of Fort Sill on the 44.
How big is Geronimo?
I have a gas station.
And I'm guessing since it's named Geronimo, it's full of American, Native American Indian population.
It's funny I hate to say it, but it was almost an element of Jim Crow down there, because it's like half of the town of Geronimo they've allotted to the Native American community, and then the other half is all military community. And there's a very divided line there.
Oh, jeez. Okay, so you're now your supplier of cannabis is leaving. When do you start? What do you do?
So he tells me that he's leaving essentially June, July timeframe of 14. So I'm like, okay, I got enough time to at least start doing something until I no longer have him as a resource. So I start watching some videos. I'll give a shout out. I watched a wonderful YouTube video by a gentleman by the name of George Cervantes.
George, okay.
And I tell you what, he taught me everything I needed to know. And
George, helping out veterans before they're even discharged. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So I'm attempting this, and the only knowledge I have of horticulture at the time is the videos that I'm watching. And I'm seeing all these different things, and I'm like, it says something, do this at week 3. And I'm looking at my plant at week 3, and I'm looking at his plant at week 3, and I'm like, they don't look the same, George.
Okay.
So come to find out, I was cutting fan leaves off that didn't need to be cut off. I was trimming these things before they needed to be trimmed. So they were doomed for failure. I wish I had pictures of them. I really did, just to get the criticism from the community. I would put them on my own Instagram and be like, hey, check this out, gents. What do y'all think? How am I doing this week? They're just terrible. I mean, it was god awful terrible.
You have an excuse. You've never grown before. So
exactly. So the sad part of that in the entire situation is that I really wasn't going to yield anything from the evolution.
And so this question, you got caught with your plants the first time you grow. So these broke dick plants, let me use that word,
yes,
that you were growing are the ones that got you in trouble.
Absolutely.
Christ. Okay, so now let's get this straight. Kris, a 100% disabled Marine who's been in Iraq and Afghanistan, who has a lot of issues, physical issues, along with PTSD, I'm guessing.
Absolutely.
Okay, you are getting destroyed with the pharmaceuticals, a story told over and over and over again. And I say we love it, that's just the honest truth. And anyone who disagrees with me, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And you decide through a family friend to try cannabis one time. You try it, and the result is infinitely better. You don't have rashes. You don't have opiate withdrawals. You don't have liver issues, and your pain management is outstanding relative to everything. So you find someone who's giving you this, another military soldier, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, realistically, yeah. I mean, who are we bullshitting? It was another guy, and I mean.
Marine
he was doing his thing, and he was a soldier. He was supplementing income.
See, that's what I'm telling you. Always go to the U.S. Army soldiers. They'll help you.
Hey, man, I think it was supply. I don't know.
Hey, they're creative. So you're getting his shit income, and now he's leaving. So you look up on YouTube where famous George Cervantes and say, I'm going to grow. Okay, so you get some seeds, you grow. They're the most horrible looking fucking plants in the world. You're not going to yield shit off it, but that's pretty standard for your first couple times. So we'll forgive you. Now, what the hell happens? And let's start with one night in 1 month. How do the police come out to your house?
Okay, so if I had to say a night, I don't know how many days are in May. I don't know if it's 30 or 31, but whatever it was the last day in May.
It's 31.
And I went out with a Marine buddy. He was getting retired as well. We were going to go ride around on motorcycles, hang out for a little bit, type of thing. In this process.
So he's retiring. You're going out to have a nice drink with him or something like that.
Yeah. And what it turns into is we have a Marine Corps drink. And
so you're plastered.
Yes, we're done. We're not riding home, sort of a thing. So we're conducting rack ops on the floor and couches of the buddy's house that we're at. My phone's dead. So obviously, if you've got a wife at home and you're now not home, and your phone is dead, you're pretty much up the creek without a paddle.
Every guy listening with a girlfriend or wife can totally appreciate that and understand.
So I'm on my way home, and I'm riding this motorcycle home, and I'm just like, oh my god, I don't even want to deal with this. So
you're riding a motorcycle home.
I'm hungover. Okay. I'm miserable, and I already know the ass chewing.
What time is it at?
It's at that point. It's maybe 9 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, so you spent the night. You were responsible.
Yes.
You didn't go home. You're driving a sober but hungover motorcycle home, but Whitney is not heard from you at all.
No.
You're a dick.
So I walk in the door, what's wrong? I don't know. I'm playing obviously stupid male at this point. She's livid. And she told me that she has destroyed one of my plants.
Okay. So she destroyed one of your broke dip plants, but I'm sure your reaction was not positive.
Oh my God, this thing was my child. It was broke dick, but it was 4 months old. I mean, it should have been a monster, and it was a baby. But I was traumatized. I couldn't believe it. The thought that she could do that, just on the amount of time and effort that I had put into something like that. But again, being upset, how do you react? And she wasn't necessarily very receptive of the idea of cannabis. She didn't really go into the garage and know that I had as much going on. And the one that she killed was out on the back patio getting some sun the day before and never got put away. So I don't even know if she knew it was a cannabis plant at the time that she was killing it. She was just doing it because she was killing a plant that I had been working on. And again, this spouted into an argument. And at that point, I was in the middle of an effexor withdrawal. And I don't know if you have personally taken it, but if anybody out there who has, and when you take it, for me, I would get this feeling that I was having a heart attack. My face would start going numb, like from the inside out. I'd feel like my throat was going numb. And then my body would just go in this really weird state. My head would be it was terrible.
So let me ask you a question. Let's stop there.
Okay.
Why are you taking these pharmaceuticals if you're doing cannabis?
Okay. So at this point in time, I am taking cannabis on a very limited basis.
Is that because you're in the Marine still?
No, because I mean, yes, because I was in the Marine Corps, but no, because I didn't fear that I was going to, there was no point in time that I was going to get called in and get tested.
Okay.
I mean, I would have been screwed if I did, but at that point they were like, hey, we're done. We don't need you. So the fear of getting persecuted for using it wasn't really there. I just didn't want anybody else to find out about it. As far as, you know,
you're still in Oklahoma.
I didn't want Whitney knowing about it. I mean, I'd smoke in the middle of the night and a little bit in the garage with the door open. But I was so afraid that, you know, somebody walking by was going to smell it. And that, I mean, it was just going to turn into this big ordeal and that it was just going to be a nightmare. And everyone in the military, every doctor that I had talked to said, you know, they won't tell you about cannabis, but they'll tell you about all these other things and tell you that you can't come off of them. You got to wean off of them. And if you come off of them, you know, your behavior is going to be erratic. And I didn't know that my behavior could be controlled with cannabis. I didn't know that my pain could be managed with cannabis completely. At that point, it was just on the times that I used it, my quality of life was even better than without it, type of a thing.
So we're in May of 2014, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You two are fighting that morning when you come home.
So that morning's June 1. So June 1 of 14, we're having an argument, going back and forth.
And how long have you been married here?
By 14, it was 4 years. We got married in 2010, but now 6 years strong.
Okay, yeah. So listen, a fight is, I mean, I've been married 24 years now, probably a little more than that, actually, 25. I can assure you that fights are very normal in the human condition, especially when a husband goes out and parties with his friends and does not call his wife. So nothing so far to me seems, how does it fire out of control?
So where it fires out of control is we're arguing. Now we're divided. We have an island that sections off the cooking area of the kitchen and the seating area of the kitchen. So I'm in between that island and Whitney's on the other side of it, over towards our living room, and arguing back and forth. Well, I slapped the chop block of our top block of knives, and they scatter all across the counter. Whitney got really scared at that point, starts running. I didn't necessarily go after her with a knife. I picked one up. She didn't know what I was going to do with it. I don't know that I knew what I was going to do with it at that point. And she just went for the door.
Got it. So she grabbed her kids. She left.
Bingo.
You're in the middle of the fight. You hit a chop block. I mean, listen, you're a big dude. What are you, 6'5"?
Yeah. 6'5", 280.
Shit spirals out of control, especially with PTSD. You do go blank when you have this. I'm not making excuses.
No.
But what's interesting, have you ever had any domestic violence issues with Whitney?
Besides this, no. I mean, arguments that may have seemed, that they got out of hand, but at the same time too, there's not really an excuse for it. Do I think that behavior is okay? No. I don't think that beating anyone is okay, especially not a woman.
You didn't touch her, did you?
What's that? No.
Yeah, you didn't touch her, so you didn't beat her. The knife is obviously going to freak anyone out, and I respect Whitney's, concerns getting the kids out. That makes absolute sense to me. The reason I bring this up is because let's talk about first, and I want to bring this up for a reason, because we got to confront this domestic violence issue. It's not just you out there with PTSD, and it's a huge issue, a real issue, and I think we can have a real discussion on it. So I think it'll be good. But let's talk about, she leaves. How do the police show up at your house? Okay,
so let's just, if I can really quickly describe what happened for me at the point in time when Whitney leaves the house. All right, so Whitney leaves the house. At this point, I pick everything back up. I pick up the knives. I put them back in the chop block. And I go in and I take a shower. I wanted to rinse off from the night before. You know, at this point, I'm calmed down from the evolution. I didn't know that she went to the neighbor's house and even called the police. I thought she got in the truck and took the kids for breakfast.
Got it.
I get out of the shower, I go outside, and I see the truck there, and I'm like, I have no idea where she is. Walk back inside my house, sit down on my couch, and I hear a loudspeaker asking me to come outside. I get up, I walk to the door, and when I open the door, I'm greeted with 5 different weapon systems and a dog.
So let's just be straight. The police get called. You're a 100% disabled vet, PTSD, and some physical issues. There's been no physical violence as of yet. Although Whitney had every right to be concerned and leave the house, which is 100% the right thing to do. And I support that 100%. And were these Geronimo police or military police?
It was Geronimo police, and it was actually the Comanche County Sheriff's Department that responded.
Okay. So these are small-time cops. Let's not beat around the bush. They come to your house. They have, as you said, weapon systems. I mean, these guys are full gear with a dog, and you are the target. So you open the door. What happens?
I open the door, and again, I'm greeted. They proceed to yell commands at me to come outside of my house, lay down. I immediately do, hands behind the back. They very calm, cool situation. One of the officers, as the other 3 were handcuffing me, he called the sheriff, the actual sheriff of Comanche County, and let him know that I came outside peacefully and that everything seemed to be fine. At this point, go ahead.
Let's give the police a benefit of the doubt here and saying they come into a situation they don't know, but now it's calmed down. Okay, correct? Yes. Okay,
absolutely.
So how's is Whitney back?
No, Whitney's still at the neighbor's house, and I actually just received a report where dispatch and the officers repeated that they understood and knew that Whitney was at the neighbor's house with the kids and that it was only me in the house.
Got it.
But what that leads to is that these 5 officers now pick me up. They escort me back into my house. They sit me down on a little footstool that we had inside of our living room, and they proceed to search my house.
Got it. Over a domestic violence call.
In the process of searching my house, they don't find anything. Shortly after that, probably about 2 minutes later, another one of the officers that is there comes up to me and asks me if I have any firearms in the house. And I'm thinking, okay, domestic violence charge. The guy wants my firearms. Got it. So I told him that I had a family heirloom, a .357 pistol that I'd gotten from my grandpa when he passed away. I'd never loaded it, but it was inside my master bedroom up above the toilet. And that there was a prop shotgun. It non-functioning, but it was used in a play. It's how my parents met. Was in the garage hanging over the door.
So you went back to a .357 and a shotgun.
Yes.
And you're in Oklahoma, so it makes you like everyone else.
Yes.
Okay.
And they when they go into the garage to find the shotgun, is when they realize that there's plants growing inside the garage.
Got it. And so what do they say? What do they do? And walk me through when they talked to Whitney or what happened.
So they didn't really know what to do. That was quite obvious from the get-go. But what they ended up doing is they took me outside and put me in the back of a cop car with my hands cuffed behind my back. I let them know that I had a shoulder injury. And that if they had me like that for a long period of time, that there was going to be an issue. And they're like, oh, you'll only be in the back of the car for the ride up to the jail and it'll be fine. 3.5 hours later of me being in the back of the car, I am complaining now of my shoulder being in a lot of pain and that I need to use the restroom. They decided to transport me. When they transported me to the county, they took me into a holding area, which is where they bring everyone in from like the garage area into the actual cell area. It's just this little bench, and they handcuffed me to that bench and left me there for 11 hours. What they were doing during that time, I can't really speak on. It wasn't until 3 days later when I got a phone call. I had to knock myself out in my cell to get a phone call because I didn't have any of my medication. and
Well,
I literally had an episode.
How long are you in fucking jail for?
3 days, or no, 3 days I was in holding, and then an additional 7 days upstairs, so 10 days total.
Okay. And so you're in jail for 10 days. What are you charged with at this point in time?
I'm charged with cultivation of a dangerous and controlled substance. I'm charged with a domestic disturbance resulting in verbal threats, a paraphernalia charge, and I think they had a possession charge, but I'm not sure at that point.
Plants. Let's talk about when you say cultivate. How many plants did you have cultivated? Shitty, broke dig plants.
Technically, with the dead one, I only had 5 when they came in. It was
So when we
written up that I had
cultivate-
13, but
Yeah,
I only had 5.
Yeah, so it's because some of those were tomato plants and other plants, correct?
Absolutely.
And they've agreed to that. That's not in any type of disagreement right now. You had 5 plants, including the dead plant, and you got a cultivation charge. Correct?
Yes, absolutely.
And how much cannabis did you have on you, dried flower for medicine?
None.
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 You didn't have a weapon charge. They didn't charge you with weapon charges, correct?
No, they did not.
Okay. And at this point in time, at no point and we get into an altercation, a physical altercation, both sides agree to that. There was no marks on you and there was no marks on her, correct?
That's absolutely correct.
So this all stems from a disagreement you had with your wife and you getting and elevating, you being upset to an extent where she was nervous and scared, and I appreciate that. So she left, which is the reasonable thing to do, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you're in there for 10 days. And
Sean, just really quick, if we can touch on that part, what I'd like to stem on that is that the frustrating situation is realistically for myself, and I'm sure for many other veterans across the nation, is that in that situation for the phone call, when Whitney made that phone call, she wasn't calling out saying I was killing someone, I was hurting someone, I was threatening people or anything. She called saying that she needed help. She said my meds weren't right and that something was wrong and that she needed officers there.
I love that. Let's do that. Okay, so here, 1, 2, 3. So let me go, talk about Whitney here. And what's important is, one thing I hear over and over again is spouses, both women and men, okay, who are dealing with disabled vets who have PTSD issues, and then they get put on these significant number of pharmaceuticals, are the mood swings, are the instability that are brought on very much by the events that they, went through as part of our military, are bought on by the medications, the pharmaceuticals, and therefore the VA, and therefore the medical doctors are giving us. And there isn't a lot of places that they can turn for help. So let's talk. You guys get in this altercation. She leaves to her friends. What was the purpose of her call? Because I can tell you personally with my wife in many situations, she would reach out for help. Like, I'm not calling to get him in trouble or anything. There's an issue. How can I? And they were like, call the police, call the police, call the police. That's always the response that is given to spouses concerned about their spouses who have PTSD or issues and are on these huge amount of pharmaceuticals.
And you know what, though, Sean? Realistically, you know what? If a law enforcement officer is doing their job of protecting and serving the community, and they're, provided the information that they're dealing with a veteran and that this is very much so a PTSD-related issue, or the officer even makes that determination themselves. You can't tell me in a police department that's located directly adjacent to a military base that they have not seen this before. And to say that they're not, better trained or that they're ill-equipped, in my opinion, it's a disgrace. Any law enforcement agency that's near a base should be mandatory that they have training and understanding this.
What was it that Whitney called in and wanted? And what was the purpose of her call? Was the purpose of her call to get you arrested?
No, God, no.
It never is. So
no.
She had no markers. She hasn't, and she's come out and said, the reason this is important is the police in this small town put in the local newspaper this arrest. And they literally made it sound like you were Pablo Escobar.
And not only Pablo Escobar, but I was Pablo Escobar with an attitude, because not only did I do my thing, but I was also chasing people with a knife and threatening to kill people like, some sort of savage beast.
Correct. And is there anybody who's testified to you being the savage beast or gone on record?
No.
Okay. So talk to me about your wife's interaction, Whitney's interaction with police. This is really important because it's something I see over and over again throughout this country. And so talk to me about, she makes the phone call. At what point does she start to interact with the police? And what does that discussion between her and the police go like?
So the discussion turns into if Whitney does not push with a domestic charge, and the charge that they're stating, not that they were there to help me in any way, shape, or form, but that she would be ultimately charged with cultivation right along with me because of the fact that it was in the garage, even though she had no working knowledge of it, didn't even know that I really had those in there. They didn't smell at that point. It wasn't like there was this crazy odor or, strong deterrent that there was cannabis located in the house. No one knew. They were still in a vegetative state.
Yeah, they're broke dick plants. You don't smell the flowers. So they're basically saying, and this is an experience I see with my wife when I got arrested by the DEA, although a little bit different. I admit I was, growing a significant amount more than you, but I was in California and I was doing it for vets. They did the same thing to my wife, which is tell us everything. If you don't tell us and work with us, we're going to arrest you on the same charges and we're going to take your kids away. That's what they told my wife. So what happened to you is not unique. Nope. And what was interesting.
It's a disgrace.
Correct. No, it is, especially when, with all due respect, I mean, when you're taking these pharmaceuticals, your mood does, and you're on PTSD, you have mood issues. You have anger issues. And a friend of mine said out in San Diego, and he said the following. And he said, and he deals with a lot of stuff we've dealt with and we see with the project. And he says the following, and I think you'll agree with this. When I get in trouble or I have something wrong, and my wife or my girlfriend have something wrong, we have a long list of people to call. Includes the police.
Nope.
So let me ask you, would you suggest that any wife or spouse out there call, male or female, call the police on their PTSD husband or spouse or wife?
You know what? At the point in time that you feel threatened for your safety or your life in any way, shape, or form, by all means. That's exactly what they feel is their only use at this point in time. So utilize them for at least that. If law enforcement's only role at this point in time is to preserve life in life-threatening situations, then use them for that. But if you realistically know that a significant other is going through an issue and you have the resources to essentially rectify the situation without law enforcement, realistically, the ultimate outcome is better for the family, because the stress, the rip, the magnitude of law enforcement involvement in a, as I like to call, a healing process for any veteran, it's so damaging, it's scary. Yeah, I mean, it's so few and far between that are successful, let alone having to jump through milestones like this. It's very difficult.
Thanks for listening to the Weed for Warriors Project podcast. This is a 3-part series with Kris Lewandowski, a Marine arrested in Oklahoma for, yes, growing cannabis. This was part 2, and we hope you enjoy the final installment, part 3. And we'll be right back after these 5 dabs.